Trump said the United States was a few signatures away from dialing down its war with Iran. He bragged that we basically have a deal and hinted the blockade could ease once Tehran signed. Then Israel escalated its bombing campaign in Lebanon, while a swarm of pro-Israel influencers and lobby-aligned accounts spent days framing any Iran deal as a betrayal. Trump folded. Lebanon was suddenly separate. The blockade stayed, and the deal that was mostly done turned into, we're not rushing into anything. First, the official story. Trump and his team have been telling the public that negotiations with Iran are ongoing, that a framework deal is largely negotiated, and that it's built around Iran reducing certain escalations in exchange for some relief, especially around the Strait of Hormuz. The message is, we're tough, we bomb when we need to, but we're also savvy enough to get an off-ramp that reopens trade and cools the oil market. Don't get hypnotized by the press conferences. This isn't just war and peace. It's a managed transition away from a pure US dollar, US hegemony world towards a system of competing blocks. In that framework, energy choke points like Hormuz are tools in a controlled reset. You stress the system with war and uncertainty, then use that to justify changing the rules of finance, debt, and money itself. While those Iran talks are inching forward, Israel keeps hitting targets in Lebanon, Hezbollah positions, infrastructure, anything you can describe as defensive operations. From Tehran's perspective, it's all one war. Iran, its allies, its supply lines, and its deterrence posture are tied directly to what happens in Lebanon. You cannot separate Hormuz and Lebanon in their strategic calculus. Trump tries to do exactly that by branding Lebanon separate, a skirmish outside the Iran ceasefire track. On paper, that lets him sell progress with Iran while giving Israel a free hand over Lebanon. In reality, it's a fantasy. Iran insists that any real deal has to include ceasing hostilities on all fronts, including Lebanon, plus easing the blockade and dealing with frozen funds. These extra fronts are not bugs, they're features. The more theater you have, Hormuz, Lebanon, Iraq, the Gulf, the more excuses you have for volatile energy, prices, capital controls, and forcing countries to pick blocks. Lebanon becomes one more lever in a larger equation. Create enough crisis to force a reset, but keep it controlled enough that the core financial system doesn't snap. Here's where soft power turns into hard constraint. The moment the White House starts talking seriously about an Iran off-ramp, reopening of Hormuz, easing some sanctions, loosening the blockade, a whole pro-Israel and defense industry-friendly influence ecosystem goes into overdrive. You see it across platforms, foreign policy pundits tied into think tanks and donors, culture war influencers who, like clockwork, become Iran hawks the second Israel trends. Finance and tech personalities whose biggest backers are wired into the same lobby and networks. They all push identical lines. Trump is rewarding terror. No deal while rockets fly. Real patriots stand with Israel, not Tehran. This isn't just chaos, it's message discipline. The effect is to raise the political cost of any deal that constrains Israel's operations in Lebanon. The pressure doesn't just come from Netanyahu's government. It comes from an entire network of aligned media outlets and patriotic accounts whose incomes and access depend on enforcing that narrative. Every time the political machine kills a serious de-escalation, it extends a profitable status quo. High but managed oil prices, ongoing arms sales, central banks with an excuse for more intervention, and a stronger case for assets like Bitcoin and gold. In that sense, the influencer class isn't just defending Israel's military freedom, it's also protecting a war economy configuration that serves the wider reset. Watch Trump's progression. Before the backlash, he's out there saying,
"This deal is largely negotiated. We're close. Once Iran signs, we can ease up."
He wants the optics of a deal-maker who can get out of an expensive mess without calling it retreat. After Israel escalates in Lebanon and the pro-Israel media and influencer machine spends days accusing him of betrayal, the posture flips. Suddenly, Lebanon is separate. Israel's bombing continues with explicit cover, and the line out of Washington is all about significant disagreements and no rush to an agreement. That isn't new intelligence. It's a politician reading his basis speeds. He understands a foreign ally plus a disciplined online outrage network can hurt him more than a random U.S. voter ever can. So the deal's downgraded from destination to talking point, and the war economy rolls on. Each of these episodes chips away at the illusion of the U.S. strategic autonomy. If a sitting president can be forced to reverse course by an ally's bombing campaign and a coordinated influencer pile-on, then the U.S. is already transitioning from undisputed hegemon into something closer to a heavily armed regional power plugged into a larger negotiated financial order. The Iran-Lebanon climb down is one visible example of the loss of control. Step back and you can see the micro pattern. Oil isn't behaving like total chaos. It's volatile but capped, as if everyone expects prolonged tensions rather than clean peace. Middle Eastern states are tightening relationships with China and BRICS, exploring trade outside pure dollar channel. Gulf states are quietly hedging against relying solely on U.S. security guarantees. At the same time, Bitcoin and gold are holding up or grinding higher into war headlines, acting less like pure risk trades and more like hedges against a stressed, politicized dollar system. This isn't noise, it's capital starting to migrate. All of this is evidence that we're already in the early to mid stages of a controlled reset. Wars that never quite end, deals that never quite close, and crises that stay just bad enough to justify more debt and more control. All while ownership of hard assets and strategic resources gradually consolidates in the hands of those steering the transition. So what happened with Trump, Iran, and Israel-Lebanon is not just a one-off blunder. The U.S. president said, "We had a deal, and an ally escalated in Lebanon. A disciplined influencer and lobby ecosystem screamed betrayal, and he backed down." That's late-stage empire. The nominal superpower answering to a foreign government and its digital enforcers instead of its own long-term interests. This isn't just incompetence or cowardice, it's how a controlled reset operates. Keep the world in a stage of managed crisis, use that to rewrite financial rules and redistribute ownership, and let wars and influencers provide the emotional cover.